Started out working at SeaTac beginning in 2004 in the Facilities and Infrastructure Department as a mechanical infrastructure senior engineer, basically a facilities engineer in charge of the mechanical systems here at the airport. I performed those duties for about 10 years and then moved on to construction projects. I worked on infrastructure projects leading up to and then joining the North Star team, which really was culminating into the North Satellite renovation project. I was the mechanical project manager for 4 years or 3 years prior to kind of escalating through the North Star team to eventually take over the program in 2019, late 2018, early 2019, as we completed the phase 1 of the construction of the expansion, and then have been the program leader of the program since that point through construction. We're currently just completing the construction now.
Please describe the North Satellite renovation and expansion project at the Seattle Tacoma Airport, and what was your role in the project?
Yeah, you can see behind me is the North Satellite here at SEA. And the North Satellite renovation really was an expansion of 12 to 20 gates at the North Satellite. The North Satellite was constructed in 1972, opened in 1973 timeframe. It's about 47 years old, and it was really in need of seismic upgrades, as well as the airport really needed expansion. So we went from 12 to 20 gates, which is as far as we could expand the North Satellite without running into major problems with future projects running to the north. So the expansion was about a football field long to the north. It included the 8 gates. And then after we completed that phase of the expansion, we moved back into the existing facility and completely renovated the existing facility to today's modern terminal design standards and to comply and meet up with the phase 1 expansion. So it really looks like a brand new terminal at the end of the day. My role in the project, as I stated before, started as the mechanical project designer. Then I became the assistant program leader and then eventually the program leader.
What were some of the project's major difficulties and how were they overcome?
Some of the real challenges that we had, we don't really talk about difficulties here at SEA, but we talk about challenges. And the basic challenge of the program was, how were we going to build this project and phase this project around a satellite train station stop? So as you might imagine, when we call it a satellite, we have an underground train system at SEA, and this is one of the primary stops on the train. So passengers get onto a train in the main terminal, and they end up out at this satellite, this remote facility. There's a big loop, and that's how the passengers get to and from this terminal. So how are we going to build this while maintaining the operations at the satellite all at the same time, which is a tremendous challenge from a cost and construction sequencing perspective. So those were the objectives of the program. Was we were never going to take more than X number of gates out at a time. And the history of SEA through the 2010s was we were growing exponentially every year. So as we were designing the facility, we were growing faster than we could design it and incorporate changes into the program. We had multiple changes in 2015 and again in 2017. We completed our contract negotiations with our general contractor in 2017 and just ran with what we had because we really needed to build. The need of growth was accelerated during the program, so it was very challenging to accommodate that and somehow complete this project without any real impact to the passengers. From an operational perspective and from a customer service perspective, we really wanted to minimize that customer service experience because it really was for our primary airline, Alaska Airlines, to maximize that customer experience while we were somehow constructing the building. So working hand in hand with Alaska and our major stakeholders at the port to really develop a program that minimized that customer impact was a huge challenge to the overall program. Another challenge for us was just having a multi-year mega project. You know, we're talking about $700 million and a serious project that really impacts the overall airport. And year by year, how do we accommodate for the construction impacts, and year by year, how do we accommodate for gating, and how do we deal with the people that fade out and fade in, both from a design, contract, and stakeholder level. You have different needs and wants of different people. As people left our team and left the program, and other people would come in, you know, we have turnover at the airport, and how do we deal with all of that to make sure that we have the best program that we could turn over. And then, as I said before, one of the key ingredients was really balancing the customer experience. One of the things I like to say here at SEA is put your feet in the shoes of the passenger coming through the airport. You know, we work here every day and we get used to how the impacts are, but if you can walk in the shoes of the traveler for a day and look and see and understand how they experience our airport, we really want to keep that at the highest level. So if we think about that as you know, workers every day, and try to provide the best possible outcome and balance that customer service level with the construction needs and wants in order to complete the program, you'll achieve the highest success that you can get to here at SEA.
So what about the project surprised you, either good or bad, perhaps an unexpected challenge or an unexpected benefit?
So one of the real surprises for me was just the complexity of the infrastructure and the complexity of the phasing. We like to say on this program that we had a two-phase project, and you can kind of see behind me there we go, there's my hand, that this area here was the expansion, and then the other area, the large center area, and the area to my left was the existing remodel. Just that project was done in two phases, and we like to tell everybody, and you know, commission and senior executive team members, that this was a two-phase project, but it had like 23 micro sequences per phase. So when you start talking about, you know, just the phasing and trying to keep things alive around the central core, I think those 23 micro sequences were concerned right around the escalators. So you land at a train station that's subterranean, and you have to get up to the concourse level through escalators. We have 4 escalators, and we had just 1 elevator at the time. How do we keep people moving through that area at the throughput of a growing airport all the time and maintain a high level of customer service? You can see the kind of challenges that we're talking about. So that micro sequencing of, we're going to take this elevator down for these 3 months and erect temporary barriers between that and the other escalator or elevator, so that we can actually construct that one and get that remodeled and get the new escalator elevator in place, and then we switch back over. And so there were literally 23 micro sequences around this small area in order to just keep the project moving, and always try to keep as many escalators and elevators and vertical transportation through the building up and running, so that we could just get the people through. You know, we do not like to have any situation where people are having to climb steps, especially today with how traveling has changed, where so many people have carry-on, and it makes it really challenging when you come up to a train station and your option is stairs. So we don't ever want to be in that position. So that was a real surprise to me, coming from me being a mechanical engineer and an infrastructure type person, and having to deal with customer service and balancing those kind of needs. So for me, it was a lot of learning and a lot of concentration on just that complexity of sequencing and understanding the needs of people versus contractor. You know, the other thing that was really great about the program, I think that we are really, really proud of on the North Satellite team, is just our relationships. as a leader, I tried to inhibit use all my skills in team building. I was very involved with team sports in the past, and brought that into my professional repertoire. And I'm all about, let's solve this problem as a team. Let's get to business. And my predecessor had really built the ingredients and made that ingredients in the blender all ready to go, so that when I picked up the team as we were wrapping up the first phase, all we needed was the spark. And the real spark for us is that we were struggling to get to the end game, and our construction date was looming upon us to open the phase one. And we were like in November of 2018, October of 2018, and it slipped out in a commission meeting to the public that this was the date that we were looking at. It was actually a draft schedule that had been shared with one of our folks, and it was kind of an accidental slip out that, hey, maybe we could meet January 23rd, 2019 for the phase one. And it was something that we were just beginning to have a conversation about, and with our contractor. We hadn't really had these discussions, so it got out that this was going to be our date. And once it got to the public, we had to really accelerate and move and get there. And the spark really was applied there, and we changed our way of thinking about delivering the project. And we had check-ins, weekly, bi-weekly with our contractor. It became, over the holiday of 2018, to be twice a week. And really the interesting thing was that the leaders, myself and our construction manager and our other main project manager, would sit down and meet with the contractor on Monday morning. We had 10 major problems that we would not be able to open on January 23rd. And, and we're talking about early to mid-December. And by every Friday, we were down to like one item. And then the next Monday, 10 more things would pop up. And it was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this? And really, we just managed it by taking a litmus test of our team every week. And as we got closer and closer, all of a sudden, these things started falling away, and major obstacles fell away. And we said, maybe we can achieve this. We got past the first of the year. We were meeting in like January 7th saying, okay, we're down to these things. And then the next week, it wasn't 10 items anymore. It was just the 3 items. And we were like, holy cow, this might actually be possible. And so that spark really ignited between the designer, the contractor, the project team, the construction managers, the project managers, all of our stakeholders. And we did the heavy lift, and we achieved what we thought was not possible. And the outcome of that was the ingredients in the blender mixed, and the spark happened, and the team gelled. And when we moved into phase 2 and 2 more years of construction, no one could touch us. No challenge was too great. And when we got into the phase 2, one of the first things that happened was some changes to the concessions program, and things were falling away for them a little bit. And then COVID happened, and it was like, how are we going to get through this? And we just used the same blender, and we blend those issues up, and we solved them. We actually were able to accelerate our construction during the COVID time. We met with our contractors, and we came up with this idea of trying to figure out a different way for the people to get through the core. And because so few people were traveling, we actually closed down all of our escalators, and we restricted an area because it was just a few people coming through the airport during that time. And we sent them through the elevator with security people around them and everything. So it was a safe and secure way to get through the airport, but allowed us to expand our construction area and consolidate some of those 23 micro sequences that I mentioned about. And we accelerated our project by 3 months. So when we got to 2021, we started talking about a new opening date of not the fall of 2021, but actually summer of 2021. And at that time, I challenged our team and said, I feel like America overall is really looking forward to a 4th of July 2021. And our schedule seems to be in alignment with that. And can we do just a little bit more lifting and get a few days before into our schedule and get to a preliminary, late June, early July for the 4th of July holiday. We started really working on that, and we were able to achieve that. So we opened on June 29th, 2021, and I'm incredibly proud that we made that date, and it was a good date for us. We didn't overwork ourselves, but we worked at a good clip and a good pace. So we were able to translate the successes of 2020 into 2021. And it really was taking lemons of COVID and turning it into lemonade. So incredibly proud of the overall team and the performance that we did. And that was a huge surprise. And really that talks about how you can achieve the things that you set out to do. And from a leadership standpoint and from a team perspective, challenging your team when you have the right team and you've laid the groundwork for success, and you have the collaboration and that gel that's coming along, and you spark that team. And sometimes it's a negative spark. I mean, we were very frustrated that this date had slipped out in 2018, and people were like saying, there's no way we can do this. But that was the spark that we needed to really feel like we could get there. And once we got there and saw our success as an overall team, and I'm talking about, 40, 50 major team members. We're talking about the design team, the commissioning agents, major stakeholders, the contractors, the subcontractors, all the different project managers and consultants and everyone. It all gelled and it came together. And when we saw that and we achieved that success, there was really nothing that we couldn't do at that point. And that really gave us the positivity and the confidence that we were going to be successful.
What is the curb to seat experience, and how can it reduce travel stress?
Well, the curb to seat experience is a consolidated effort by the Port and Alaska Airlines to really try to reinvent how people go through the airport. And this was an objective of our program that dates back to 2014, where we sat down with Alaska and said, how can we transform our experience to the North Satellite? So this really means lowering the stress factor from the time that people get dropped off at the curb or the main terminal until the time that they get into a seat on the airplane. And it's a consolidated effort, and it takes a lot of teamwork and collaboration of both the airlines and the airport. And so we tried to leverage technology, and we tried to leverage different infrastructure systems to achieve this reduction in stress. So what it really means to us for the North Satellite Modernization Program and North Star today is that when you get on that train and you get through the airport and get through security, once you get on the train and you get to our facility, that we're opening that up. From the program perspective, we had to eliminate some of the things in the main terminal that changed a little bit from the curb to seat experience. So from the definition for our program, it really was defined as from the time that train lands at the station. We did some preliminary work to add some stress reducing things at the train station itself in the main terminal, some time to train numbers, and trying to help steer people to balance out the number of people in each car. But really, we left the main terminal to separate programs and separate projects. So really, it was from that train to landing at the station. And so you open the doors at the station and you have this big, expansive new opening that opens up to the concourse level with a lot of natural light that penetrates down, leveraging technology so that people can easily find their way up to the concourse. And then when you get to the concourse, it really is a left or right. The train station is now in the center of the terminal. So it's a left or right turn, but you're opening up to 50-foot high ceilings, natural daylights penetrating into the center of the facility, this huge, expansive center marketplace. We call it Marketplace at N, with concessions all around. It really evokes a sense of the environment, the Pacific Northwest, really calming. The terminal actually looks somewhat, has this Northwest sense of place that we talk about, with our program. So it really looks and feels like the columns are painted like they might be trees of a forest. You can see the curves and the roof lines move. And we have natural wood ceilings that reflect onto that, so you can really understand and know that you're at Seattle and you're in the Pacific Northwest. So we have the movement and the evoking of water. The left and right turn we call the river. So the center of this terminal really undulates up and down and side to side, and it's supposed to make you feel like you're out in the Puget Sound with the soft water moving up and down of the waves of Puget Sound, or maybe possibly the Columbia River, and it moves left and right. And we actually have islands in the center of the river with concession spaces and seating and things like that. So we have different colors on the terrazzo, and we've taken it to an effect of this is really the Pacific Northwest, and it's supposed to lower the stress. And from a technology standpoint, we have call to gate systems that are ready to go. We have visual paging on the FID displays. We have a lot of technology things, I believe that we are now getting the call to gate ordering for concessions. So you don't necessarily need to go to the gate. What we really want people to do is come to the North Satellite, hang out at the marketplace, and check out the art that we have. And we have some unbelievable art at the North Satellite with Northwest flavor and Northwest artists. So it doesn't mean that you need to go sit in your hold room and sit in the seat and look at the gate and watch the airplane sit at the jet bridge. So we understand that there is a certain customer that needs to get to the gate and needs to see the airplane, spot the restrooms, and then spot where they can get something to eat or drink. And there's a need for that. But there's also this other passenger and traveler, especially in the Northwest, where we have so many people that have technology, and we are a technology hub of the nation. And we have this other traveler that says, I understand that there's going to be restrooms and this and that near my gate, and I don't need to be there. You know, I came to the airport an hour and a half early, and I have time to go do something else. I understand where N1 gate is, and I have an app that's telling me when I need to be there. And so I want to go check out these other things and have a different experience. So we're trying to marry those two experiences together and really lower that stress level for the average traveler. And we think that we've achieved that. So there's the part of the artwork behind me, as well as you can see all of that daylight. This is in that center marketplace from a few months ago, just as we were opening.
How did sustainability factor into this project? Were there specific sustainability objectives or more of just a general mindset?
There's something about working at SeaTac Airport and SCA that just evokes and really is part of how we work. You know, it is embedded in what we do. So it's part of how we go about our business at SCA. So when we do projects and we talk about doing things here at the airport, it always has a mindset of sustainability. So it's really part of our nature at SEA to work with sustainability and think about it in every decision that we make. So when we do projects, sustainability is a key objective of everything that we do. As part of this program, we had some specific measures that were talked about at the commission level, and we also had individual measures that the airport department, the airport division really wanted to achieve, as well as the objectives of the overall environmental department. So how the Port of Seattle is broken up is you have a corporate branch division that oversees the seaport and the airport divisions. And so we have objectives from a sustainability level that come down from the corporate branch, but we also have our own from the aviation branch as well. And there's collaboration that goes along with Seaport. But so you can see how it's multi-tiered and multi-leveled and how it really is part of what we do. from an organizational level and how we build it into projects is that we really take those objectives and we try to turn them into reality. So part of what we did was we had sustainability charrettes and seminars and talk about it with the designers as to what can we do from an environmental perspective to change how we build and to build more responsibly, to look at air, water, and land, and try to do things that make a material difference. So as part of our project, we employ some of the things that the airport already does every day. In the 2010s, we opened a project called PC Air, which is preconditioned air for the airplanes, which is in effect turning off the jet engines and running heating and cooling to the airplanes. We have removed a lot of the gas-powered equipment that's out on the air operations area where the airplanes are. And so a lot of our tugs and baggage cart haulers and all of those, they're all electrified already. And so we just employ the chargers at the North Satellite. So there's a lot of things that are done airport-wide that we employed here at the North Satellite Terminal. And they're, award-winning and championship type sustainability things that we've done from an overall perspective that we've employed here. There were some then specific project goals that we needed to achieve as well. And one of those was a demonstration project of capturing rainwater to flush toilets and urinals at the North Satellite. It was originally an idea from our commission back to the project. And we installed two 15,000-gallon tanks in the ground as we were building the expansion. And this was to be piped to a treatment system and then pumped over to the center core restrooms. And we did a cost-benefit analysis that said, hey, maybe just doing the center 4 restrooms in the center of the building, because we could maximize cost efficiencies of the infrastructure piping systems, that would be a great demonstration project to see, does this work or does this not work at an airport level. I know it's not groundbreaking in the sustainability world to do rainwater flushing, but in Washington, we've had some challenges with the Department of Ecology and who owns the water. And we've also had a lot of challenges from an airport perspective. A lot of our rainwater that goes onto the buildings here doesn't necessarily inject into a storm drain system to be treated and recharged into creeks, but it actually was going to the industrial waste system so that we could treat it. And it was being treated as if it was water that lands on the runways where you have the potential different sources of contaminants and then being treated and then recharged to a creek. So we were running it through a process that was expensive and cumbersome, and we really wanted to change that. So our options were to go to the storm drain system, which requires treatment, or maybe we could just jump straight to the building and inject it right into the building. Imagine, if you will, if we were to put it into a storm drain system, we would have had to have installed a pipe, over 1,000 feet underneath taxiways in order to get to the North Satellite. So actually treating the water on site and then injecting into the toilets is a great way to save both an infrastructure and keep that water here on site and utilize it for a benefit. So at the end of the day, as we were completing the project, the commissioners and the airport leadership actually asked us how much would it cost to add the infrastructure piping to all of the restrooms. And it turned out that we had a great idea as through part of our phasing, we put in some HDPE pipe, which is a type of plastic recycled piping system that we call purple pipe. We had to temporarily install some of this piping from south to north through the facility as part of the PC Air cooling and heating system to maintain operations for that. It turned out that piping we were going to remove and recycle, but we could leave it where we installed it in the utilidor and just leave it as another system, and then just change the color to purple, and then it becomes the reclaim pipe, and we utilize that as our main piping system for these other restrooms. And so we were able to really capitalize on some of the temporary systems to, in effect, utilize for permanent systems to change infrastructure over to the rainwater flushing system and then pipe up all the restrooms. So we now today have the ability to flush the toilets with rainwater at all of our restrooms here at North Satellite.
So I also read that the designers had to create for this project something called a seismic hug. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did want to touch on one more thing back on the last question, though. Some of the things that we did also do is at the very beginning, we decided we were going to be a LEED project, and we are working towards getting our LEED certification here by the end of the year, as well as some of the normal port standard abatement and contamination of soils, all the things that we normally do in construction here to protect the soil, the air, and the water. So those were a couple of other objectives. And then we'll move on to the seismic hug. The seismic hug is a great idea that our designers had. AECOM and our structural engineer, MKA, had come up with an idea early on how could we seismically reinforce a 47-year-old facility. We had a earthquake in the Northwest in the early 2000s called the Nisqually quake, which the outcome of that were major code changes in the structural codes and building codes that applied to the Northwest. So things changed in how the existing facility, obviously, as you might think, over 47 years, maybe seismic effects change by geographic area, depending on what happens in the area. And so the codes changed shortly after that quake. And of course, the North Satellite had never had any major addresses to the structural system of it. You know, we had done tenant improvements and things over the years and done a few small changes here and there, but there were no material changes to the building structural system. So our structural engineer analyzed the existing building to the current codes, and we were, sorely deficient as we expected, but what were we going to do about it? And they came up with this idea of let's expand by one bay around the existing building, and then we'll abut the existing building to the new expansion. So the new expansion was actually built to the current code as you might expect, but it also adjoined to the north half of the building. So we removed one bay of the existing 73 facility. And then we, in effect, braced the existing building up against the new building. And in that 25-foot zone, we intermix the structural systems so that way it reinforces that 73 structure on the north end. So it basically braces it like, leaning against someone to say, hey, just relax, I got you. And then around the perimeter of the building, we did a 25-foot expansion all the way around the existing building, in effect, hugging the building. And that's where we get this idea of, the seismic hug itself, of hugging the building with new expansion. And today you can stand in the hold rooms and you can't tell the difference of what's existing 47-year-old structure and what's the new structure, but it really is that perimeter that's been seismically braced properly to exceed the current code. And what that does is that hugs the existing building. So the effect of that to the project, and somebody might say, well, why in the world would you try to do that? Well, that gets back to that sustainability idea, how it's part of our very nature. We questioned ourselves as to how much of this building should we remove? Would it be cheaper for us to knock the whole thing down and just build new? Perhaps, but we have a huge issue with this customer experience and operations and gate allocation and how we're going to get people through the facility at SeaTac over the years. So it really came down to, we need to keep the building up and running, and we don't have the ability to destroy the floors and the columns and the beams. And not only that, we can assess those, and the steel and the floor and a lot of the concrete in that existing building are still good, and they still have real life in them. And why would we want to send them to a landfill and view those as waste? And we can reutilize it right here where it sits today and reinforce it and hug it and be its best friend and save about 40 to $50 million to the overall program. So from our perspective, it was the right decision. It was a great idea by our design team. It works when you look at all of the, computational dynamics and structural loading analysis that we performed on the building. And today we're reaping the benefits of a beautiful new facility with this great idea of hugging the existing with the new. And that's how we coined the term, the seismic hub.
So now that we got into a lot of the engineering, what was the relationship with and among the engineering teams, and how much interaction did you have with them?
Well, being a mechanical engineer, I probably poked a little more than I should have into some of the infrastructure and into the engineering. I started out as the mechanical project manager, so I had a great relationship with the different engineering teams. Our contract was with AECOM, an architectural firm, one of the largest in the world, and they have a great amount of experience working at airports from an architectural perspective. Our mechanical engineers are Mazzetti, and our electrical was Stantec. So we had a great team put together. We had a great vision to the project. We worked daily with the designers, and it really got to a great point when we finished the design and we really started enveloping the designers. We used a methodology called GCCM, which is General Contractor Contract Manager, which is almost in other areas of the country, it's known as CM at risk, or Construction Manager at risk. So we hired the contractor at about 60% design or 50% design. We brought them in to try to help us win the challenges of the phasing. But some of the outcomes of that was the partnering and the collaboration with the contractor, and the relationships started building between the designer and the contractor way back in 2016 when we hired the contractor. So we worked really, really well. And then as we got into the construction in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, it came down to, we started really having these meetings on Monday mornings with the designer, the contractor, and the port folks that were managing the project and the construction. And we became more like the listeners, and the designers were bringing up the issues and the contractor was bringing up the issues, and it became a very collaborative environment. So we had this 1 hour meeting every Monday morning, and then we would have outbreaks. And then by the afternoon, we had, resolution meetings with the contractor to try to, get a leg up on the week to what are the issues of the week? What are the RFIs? What are the change orders? What are the real challenges of this week? What are the shutdowns that are coming up? And we included the designer in so much of what we did. And I think that may have been different than what we've done on some of our other projects, and some of the projects that I even performed back in the early 2010s. We really kind of used the designers as a consultant when we had a problem, like, hey, we're the port and we're the airport and we know what's going on and we know how to do our projects, so we'll call you when there's a problem. In this particular program, we involved them every day, every week. And that was a material change in how I have worked in the past. And I found it incredibly satisfying on a large program to create that really collaborative and partnership between the designer and the contractor that I think helped us gel, and that helped achieve a lot of the results, and we're reaping those rewards today.
What can other airport renovations and expansions learn from your project? And what advice can you pass along?
That's a good question, and something that I think about, and it's like, man, if I could somehow make the same margarita for everybody else, could I make that happen again for my next project? I want to be as successful as I possibly can be. And I'm always striving to learn and to do better and to make projects better. And so how can I personally mix those ingredients and create that spark again? And so, what my advice would be is to really try to challenge yourself to put your mind in the shoes of the traveler, and then take that experience in your head, as a program leader or a project manager and think about the contractor and what are his risks and what are his goals and objectives, you know? Is it truly to make money and profit and or is it to have a satisfied client? And how is it to, how can you manage and leverage everything together? So how can you balance, you know, private business with profit margins and things, with that customer experience and with client relations? And think about that, you know, perhaps our contracting and design community aren't always about the bottom line, making a dollar, but maybe they're about the long term and the relationship, and try to walk a mile in their shoes. And then come back to your team and talk about all of the disadvantages and advantages of these different stakeholders, and then put together your risks and opportunities and see how can you partner with these people? How can we see it from their perspective, and can we reach that common ground of being able to collaborate and really partner together to achieve the success? So you have to have that vision, that high vision of what are your objectives and how are you going to achieve them? You know, don't think about always, you know, the traditional contractor designer relationship. How can we align to achieve the success of everyday problems, of just the design documents? You know, contractor has a question. Well, maybe he has a question because he's trying to get the thing built and trying to figure it all out. Maybe it's not just I'm looking for a change order, I'm looking for a way to get another dollar out of somebody. So you got to really think about, you know, how do we achieve that collaboration at an early on time frame, and then can you parlay that into that spark, and can you put it all together in a way that really marries everybody's needs and objectives? Can you meet the customer's needs and wants and do your best on shortening that time frame and creating the ultimate customer experience? So yeah, we know we have to build it and we have to shut it down at some point, and we're going to have to use roto hammers, and we're going to have to dig things up and make a bunch of noise, and there might be dust and it might be dirty. But how can we do that in a way that's a little more proactive to what the customer's thinking? You know, instead of just erecting a wall, like, can we erect a wall and put some cool graphics on it? And can we help, you know, provide different displays and screens and methodologies to help the people get away from those areas? Like, hey, maybe it's not so cool to be over here, but maybe over there you might see a new piece of art. So let's kind of steer the people over there. You know, we even had some really cool signs about directional things where we took photographs of the contractors and the designers and different people that were on our team to say, hey, maybe if you go over here, and it was a really neat picture of somebody actually in all their construction gear, and you know, trying to take light of it and do some different inventive ways to solve those problems, to reduce the customer dissatisfaction with the fact that we're constructing an airport. And I know everybody in the world has had to deal with this that's ever got on an airplane. You know, is that inevitably you're going to go through a construction area at some point. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've traveled, and it's like, really, I have to go down this long tunnel of you know, plywood and this area to get to somewhere else. We understand that that travelers don't like to do that. So how can we do it in the most you know, positive way? You know, so the advice I can give is really try to be responsible with what you do. Try to build that team. Depend on the partnership, and you can leverage those relationships that you build over the years. I can't tell you how many times I have had to call in on one of my stakeholder buddies and say, hey man, you know, we've been to the ropes together, we've been on the ropes together, and I've helped you out and you've helped me out, and this is what we need to do. So leverage those relationships to achieve the success, but you got to keep your eye on the prize all the time. I'm super proud of what we have done. It's a momentous accomplishment for the future of SeaTac Airport. And I hope that people will reflect on it for years and say that team did it with grace and poise. And that's really, what I'm proud of, is that if we can do it like that, and how do we mix those ingredients and create that wonderful margarita for everyone to enjoy for the next 50 years?